do is halve the amount of meat. I only got 8 ounces of meat, 2 ounces per portion. That's really halved. And made up with all the rest, you see. Look at the numbers. It's just amazing, the actual numbers that we've got here. First of all, the original one, that's a l'osso buco with the Milanese rice and the sauce and everything else, 2,478 is down to 419 with the Minimax one. 8 grams of fat in place of 120 grams. That's 120 grams of fat out. I know it's a different dish, but it's borrowed from it. Only 4 grams of saturated fat, and therefore 18% of calories from fat from this dish, which is sensational. Then 70 milligrams of cholesterol instead of 1,100, and 460 milligrams of sodium, so it isn't really too bad. And then 3 in terms of fiber. And just a magnificent thing. You'll only need a fork for this. Look at that plump piece of meat that I have there too. I want to get the arborio rice onto the top there as well so I can taste that. Oh, I love it. And make sure that the lemon and the sage is there on the top. It just is a bright point. It just sparks it up at the last moment. Okay, that really is good. Think of the basic concept of the risotto and then springboard into your favorite dish that you'd like to create. You know, that's the whole idea. Okay, so I'm going to create one. I created this one with Robert Prince, who's my senior food associate. Great idea, brilliant idea of his in the beginning. And I hope you enjoy it. It's just great for Christmas. Oh, perfect. All right, great color and all that. Come on. I'd love to have some things for Christmas time because of the fact that, you know, over Christmas some people have actually done some research. By the way, this is a butternut squash, and I'm just cutting the neck of the butternut squash into about 1-inch slices. Have done some research which suggests that, in fact, we put on about 7 pounds between Thanksgiving and the whole of Christmas. How about that? And that's about 24,000 calories over Christmas time. And that means we got 24,000 calories to lose. Of course, unfortunately, we don't apparently lose all of those just immediately. We only lose about 5 pounds. So you gain, you know, step by step every year. So how about this for Christmas? These are the discs. Unfortunately, not all discs are created equal. And so it'll look like that. You put that on a baking sheet and cook that at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for about 20 minutes, and it's about 180 degrees centigrade, and they will come out and they will look just like that. You know, they'll just be a little browned on the top and all ready to use. And I'll show you how we those in a little while. Okay, now with the rest of this, you just simply take a knife down through there, scoop out the seeds, and then cut this up into 1/4-inch pieces, so it looks like that. Now, I admit to you, and you probably, if you've any experience from this, you're going to say, it's going to take a little time. Yeah, about 7 minutes. So if that's 7 minutes over Christmas, get the family in the kitchen. Everybody loves it. All right, put just 1 teaspoonful of oil down in the bottom, and remember, just like the technique where we did before, just take half an onion and very finely chopped so that it, you know, about the same shape, a little bit larger, of course, than the rice, and but that will work well. And then, because, you know, we didn't add garlic to the other dish, but garlic is needed here because there's absolutely no meat here at all. This is a vegetarian thing. And it's not a bad idea every now and again to throw a vegetarian dish at yourself, really. It doesn't mean to say that you're going strange, not that vegetarianism is strange, but what it means is that you're moving towards something to recognize you don't always have to have a piece of meat between your teeth in order to be able to make a beautiful meal and have everybody happy. All right, so that's stirred in and that's going nicely. Now, there's some spices that are added here and to the rest of the board. These are the spices that I have. They are allspice. And there's 1/4 a teaspoonful of allspice, a 1/2 teaspoonful of cumin, this is cumin seed, and a 1/4 teaspoonful of cayenne. That's what they look like in the whole pieces, and you can whiz those up, you know, in one of these things if you really want to. It's like a coffee mill, but you can put spices in it, make great coffee later on. And then you can, or you can get those various things already powdered if you really want to get to it. So there is the mix of the spices that are needed for this. And those are just simply stirred together. And they're used twice. In the first time, half of those spices are added to the, to the early frying of the garlic and the onions together. And now, especially over Christmas, the smell that comes out is just phenomenal. So that's done. Now all you need to do is just to take these, which is the rest of that squash. By the way, it's about a 2.5 pound squash, so that you should be able to get about a pound of hard squash into this dish now. Then you take stock, and this is a vegetable stock. I've done it before. It's in the book if you don't have it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So about 8 ounces of stock goes into the top. Now the spices and everything else brew together for just 5 minutes. So don't overdo it now. This one's had 5 minutes, so let's have a look and see what this one looks like. When you pick it up on the end of a spoon, you put a knife through it, it resists, and it has a definite resistance. It's definitely undercooked. But it will be perfect then if you just gave it 5 minutes for the rest of the dish, because it takes that 25 minutes for the rice to cook. Okay, so take the same cup of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and this, not a dry white. I've used this time a sweeter white wine with a Gewürztraminer grape in it, just to make it nice and sweet. All right, that's on the go. Just take the 1 cup of the arborio rice and drop that in, stir it up together, and then do that, just cook it until it goes really solid. And then, of course, add the next little bit of the vegetable stock to it. Just keep everything hot. Don't put cold stock in it, always hot. So that's the way it will look when it's got to that stage. Add the last 8 ounces of stock to that. Stir it all up. It must have that fantastic richness to it, which comes strictly out of the starch on the outside of the rice. It's amazing. Okay, now, I'm going to just sock into there, no meat of course, but here, look at that, Christmas. A sweet red pepper, diced up. I know they're a bit more expensive at this time of year, but there we go. And just half one of those. And then 2 tablespoons full of the stalks of parsley, which give that little, now look at the color in there. Half a cup of the grated cheese, again from that thing where you can't fudge, and save back a little cheese later. I've saved a little bit of the garnish here. I've got the parsley and the whole thing all together in order to be able to have that as a garnish over the top. So just a little bit left behind to scatter on the surface. And of course, the pepper. Now you've got some. Watch the pepper, especially for the kids, because the cayenne pepper, which is called Creole torpedo, is definitely in that dish. But I also want to add that black pepper, which is so good with this kind of food. All right, rest of the spice goes on the top like pop, perfume for the plate. I don't know if you saw that program, but that's what it's all about. To add just a little uprising, at the last moment. All done and ready to serve. Now, this is where you get these little discs of the squash. Set it there, strip the skin off the outside. Did that before, save some time. And then just ladle it on. Just let some of that squash disc, you might get larger squash than I've got. Usually you can get larger ones than that. So it has a nice disc on the outside. Doesn't that look great? And then take a little of the little scattering of the cheese and the pepper and the parsley on the top of the. Oh, sorry. Looks so great. Okay, come along. I'll show you just actually how this compares with the nutrition on the other one. Now, because this dish, the classic one that I'm going to compare this with, notice how this one just pokes out there. It's rather like the sun, like weather forecasters that show it's going to be partly sunny. So it looks nice and it's attractive on the plate. Here's another dish which is almost exactly the same as this. This is with the risotto with 2 cheeses. and we put similar garnishes into it. You see how dense the cheese looks to little wispy on the cheese there. Let's have a look at the numbers and see how it compares. As always, the classic is the red one, and we'll go green. So we got 423 calories there instead of 700, which is a good start, you know, for the Christmas. 26 grams of fat is rather a lot, so that comes down to only 7, which is much better, 3 of which are saturated fat, as against 10. Now, that means that instead of a 34% calories from fat thing, I've now got 16% of the calories total that I've got from fat, which is just so much better. Cholesterol wasn't bad at 41, but it's much better at 8. Any part of cholesterol is better. And then sodium is 385, all the way whistling down from 1,629. That's a lot. That comes from some of the dry, harder cheeses, which are very salty. And then dietary fiber is 3, and we whiz that up to 10, which is just, that's about as responsible to the old bowels as you can get, which I know at Christmas time one doesn't really think about, but there we are. So just the fork just goes straight through that wonderful piece of squash, and there it goes. Oh, this is so good. This is really neat. Oh, please, understand. This, to my taste, is one of the greatest rice dishes ever created. How about that? Do try it on your friends and your family. God bless you, and have a very Merry Christmas. Bye.
Brazilian coconut shrimp. The ginger, cilantro, and coconut milk give this a sizzling tropical flavor. Garlic sesame halibut, the sweet garlicky taste of Southeast Asia. And snapper grilled in banana leaves, Yucatan style. The locals call this tican chic. I call it irresistible. Today, it's Fish on the Fire. I'm Stephen Reichlin, and from the beautiful Esplendor Resort in southern Arizona, it's time to grill. Seafood may come from the water, but nothing brings out its briny succulence like fire. If you've ever been to the beaches of Brazil, the grill shacks of Asia, or the seaside towns of the Yucatan, you know what I'm talking about. Today's show takes you on a world tour of my favorite grilled seafood dishes. First up, coconut grilled shrimp from Brazil. Brazil has some of the most complex and interesting barbecue anywhere in the world. The idea for these shrimp marinated in coconut milk and grilled came from a restaurant in Rio de Janeiro called Platiforme. The dish was made with an Amazonian fish, but the idea was the same. The way you keep the shrimp or the fish from drying out is marinate it in coconut milk. You want to use jumbo shrimp. These are U8s. That means there are only 8 shrimp to a pound. And let me show you how to peel and devein the shrimp. So first of all, for peeling, grab the legs, pinch them between your thumb and forefinger, and just peel the shell off. It's a little bit like peeling a tangerine. And I like to leave the last piece of shell and the tail on the shrimp. Okay, to devein the shrimp, you make a cut on top of the vein, running along the back. Then you turn the shrimp over, and you make another cut along the top of the shrimp. And that sort of gives you makes a V-shaped cut. And what's nice about this is when you grill the shrimp, it will pop open. Also, the heat penetrate into the shrimp. You want to use a flat skewer for making the kebabs, and I'll show you why. You thread the shrimp on the skewer, and if you use a flat skewer, you can turn the shrimp without spinning. So to build these kebabs, a triangle of red bell pepper, a piece of onion, a piece of green bell pepper, then another shrimp. Please notice the shrimp all go in the same direction. I've said it before, I'll say it again, the human eye loves symmetry and organization. Sometimes you'll see people make a kebab like this with 2 inches of point at the end. Well, when you go to eat your kebab, you don't want to poke a hole through the roof of your mouth. So sort of bring the shrimp right up almost to the end here. Now let me show you how to make the marinade, what the Brazilians call a tempero. And it starts with fresh garlic and thinly sliced fresh ginger and diced red and green bell pepper. And those are the bell pepper pieces that were left over from cutting the triangles. For heat, a little jalapeno pepper and chopped fresh cilantro. What you want to do is puree the dry ingredients. And here's the ingredient that gives this a uniquely Brazilian touch: coconut milk, the heavy cream of the tropics. It's a cream-like liquid made from freshly grated coconut. Add white pepper and salt, vegetable oil, and a little freshly squeezed lime juice. So think about the flavor profile. You've got the heat from the ginger and jalapeno chilies, the sweetness of the coconut milk and bell peppers, and the acidity of the lime juice. So you just want to puree these ingredients together. Now pour the marinade over the shrimp. And you can see we're working over ice here. Always a good idea when you're working on a warm day outdoors. And because shrimp are so small, the marinating time is quick. 30 minutes to an hour will do it. Let me show you how to set up the grill. The process here is direct grilling, and as always, we want to keep it hot. We want to keep it clean. And to oil the grate, you've seen me do this before, a half an onion dipped in oil and rubbed across the bars of the grate. This gives you a subtle onion flavor, and it certainly looks cool. And one last technique here. This is an aluminum foil grill shield. You make it by folding over a sheet of heavy-duty aluminum foil. Place that in the front of the grill, and that will keep the ends of the skewers from burning. Man, this smells great. And if you have any extra marinade, you can just pour it over the shrimp at this stage before it's cooked. You'd never want to use a marinade that held raw shrimp as a sauce. One of your most frequently asked questions is, when do you close the grill lid? When do you open it? Well, when indirect grilling, it's always closed. When direct grilling, we use the rule of palm. If what you're grilling is thinner than the palm of your hand, you leave the grill lid open because it cooks so quickly, you want to be able to watch it. If you're cooking a big Bible-thick T-bone or porterhouse, close the grill lid so you keep the heat in. Cooking time here is really quick, about 2 to 4 minutes per side. Small portable grills like this or hibachi are great for grilling small kebabs like shrimp kebabs. What's happening here is you're caramelizing the meat proteins in the shrimp. So how do you know when the shrimp are cooked? Well, you can use the poke test, kind of poke the top, the shrimp will feel firm to the touch, or the squeeze test. That is, you want to squeeze the shrimp. Also, you can see the shrimp meat has gone from this sort of opaque gray to whitish pink. And to gild the lily, as it were, you can just drizzle the shrimp with a little extra virgin olive oil. These look fantastic. And there are your coconut grilled shrimp Brazilian style. And what you can do is just put some lime wedges to finish up the shrimp. So there you have it, coconut marinated Brazilian grilled shrimp. Nice. You know, the ginger, cilantro, and coconut milk really give you this great tropical flavor. So the next time you want to grill shrimp without drying it out, marinate it in coconut milk, as they do in Brazil. When choosing fish for grilling, I look for 3 qualities. 1, steak fish are great, fish that have a firm consistency that will hold up when you try and turn them on the grill. 2, I look for fish that have a lot of fat, a lot of oils, because this keeps the fish from drying out. And 3, I look for fish that has a lot of flavor. It's a problem that has bedeviled grill masters since the invention of the grill. How do you grill fish without drying it out over the fire? And how do you turn it without leaving half stuck to the grate? The answer is a simple tool and an explosively flavored marinade. Start with beautiful fresh halibut steaks. These are cut about 1 inch thick, the ideal thickness for grilling a fish steak. Next, the marinade. First add chopped fresh garlic. Then finely chopped or grated fresh ginger and chopped fresh cilantro. The Southeast Asian roots of this recipe are obvious. Then granulated sugar. What you want to do is pound these ingredients together. You'll notice I'm using a mortar and pestle. In many parts of the world, the mortar and pestle is used instead of a food processor, and it actually gives you a different and richer flavor. By the way, this mortar and pestle belonged to my grandfather. He was a pharmacist and he collected antique pharmaceutical equipment. It's nice to have him on the set in spirit. And you can see when you pound the ingredients in a mortar and pestle, they form this incredibly aromatic paste. The next ingredient is another typical Southeast Asian ingredient. It's called fish sauce. It's a pickled anchovy sauce, and it's used in Southeast Asia the way soy sauce is in China and Japan. Then add sesame oil and rice wine and salt and freshly ground black pepper to taste. What you want to do is just sort of mix these ingredients together. So here's your marinade. Okay, so spoon the marinade over the fish. It smells really nice. I love that combination of sweet, salty, and garlicky that they do so well in Southeast Asia. So what you want to do is coat one side and then turn the pieces over. And spoon the remaining marinade on top. Marinating time for the fish, 1 to 2 hours in the refrigerator. This is a grill basket. It's got a top and bottom panel connected with a hinge. And what you want to do is lightly oil the wires of the grill basket to keep the fish from sticking. Just go like this, and you can work over a baking sheet to keep from dripping oil on your cutting board. So take your marinated halibut and arrange it in the grill basket. Of course, you can prepare this recipe with other fish. It would be really delicious with swordfish. And bring the top part of the basket over, and you fasten the two halves together by sliding down this metal clip. To accompany the fish, a grilled vegetable side dish with a nautical theme, asparagus rafts. It starts with a quick basting sauce, finely chopped garlic and soy sauce, sesame oil, and black pepper. Whisk these ingredients together just to mix. Now, to make the asparagus raft, you want to start with thick asparagus stalks. Cut the end off, and you want all these stalks to be the same length. Now, using toothpicks or slender bamboo skewers, you want to pin the asparagus stalks together. What you do is just sort of come in through one stalk, second stalk, and so forth. I first discovered this technique at a fantastic rabatayaki in Tokyo, Japan. You do it at the bottom and then the top, and you can see why it's important to choose thick asparagus stalks. Now, the last step is simply trim off the excess ends of the skewers, and you can see what you wind up with looks like a raft. And in fact, if you're going to cook a pound or 2 pounds of asparagus, it's much easier to turn 4 rafts than it is to turn 20 asparagus stalks. Now, take that basting mixture that we made, soy sauce, garlic, sesame oil, and baste the asparagus rafts on both sides. Then sprinkle the asparagus with sesame seeds. I discovered this dish at what may be the single most expensive grilling restaurant in the world. It's called Inakaya, and it's in Tokyo. You have your asparagus, you have your fish. Let me go show you the grill. I've set up the grill for direct grilling, preheated to screaming hot. Now, the fish goes on first because it takes a little longer to cook. And simply place it on the grate in its basket. And the asparagus rafts go on next. And once the asparagus stalks are browned on one side, turn them over. The sesame seeds will toast by the heat of the fire. Now, people often ask me, well, how do I grill a whole meal on the grill? In fact, the vegetables are what you start with, because grilled vegetables served at room temperature are perfectly delicious. And once the fish is browned on the bottom, simply turn the grill basket over. No sticking, no breaking. Now I'll take off the asparagus. And I like to serve them with the toothpicks in place, but of course, you want to warn your guests not to eat the toothpicks. The fish looks ready. The way you test it, it's called the poke test. You actually press the top of the fish and you'll feel it break into clean flakes. So all you need to do is transfer the fish in its basket to a baking sheet. Remove the clip and remember to wear protective gloves. That clip gets very hot. Believe me, I speak of experience. And then just open the grill basket, and these look great. It helps to use a wide spatula. By the way, you can raft other slender vegetables like green beans and scallions. So just pull out the pins. That sesame flavor goes really nicely with the asparagus. That's really nice. You know, I'm such a sucker for that sweet, salty, garlicky thing from Southeast Asia. So now you know the secret to grilling fish without sticking. Cook it in a grill basket. This snapper grilled in banana leaf dish is inspired by a traditional Yucatan barbecue called tican chic. Tican means to kind of turn or turn again because the fish was turned. And chic means marinade. In this case, the marinade is something called recado rojo, red marinade. And it's made with a very distinctive ingredient called achiote. Long before there were grills and rotisseries, our ancestors wrapped foods in leaves and roasted them directly in the fire. The practice still survives in the Yucatan, inspiration for our next dish, Tican Chic. The banana leaf keeps the fish moist and adds a unique herbaceous flavor. This is really cool, so watch closely. The marinade starts with a staple of Yucatecan cooking. It's a spice paste called achiote. It's made with annatto seed, the same seed that gives cheddar cheese its orange color. The flavor is iodine and earthy, and it's totally unique. You can find achiote paste in Hispanic markets and in a growing number of supermarkets. Next, add fire-roasted garlic and fire-roasted onion, then cinnamon, cloves, and allspice berries. Black peppercorns go next, followed by dried oregano, bay leaf, freshly squeezed lime juice or sour orange juice, salt, and finally a little water. Puree these ingredients in a food processor to a loose paste. Of course, in the old days, the ingredients would have been pounded together in a molcajete, a lava stone, mortar, and pestle. What you want to do is just spoon the recado rojo over the fish. And then spread it over the top of the fish, and if there's any extra, you can put a little on the bottom. It's hard to describe the exact flavor of recado rojo, this red spice paste. It's earthy, it's aromatic, you've got onion, garlic, the spices. It's sort of sweet and salty. It's really almost a microcosm of flavor. Once the fish has been coated with the spice paste, marinate it in the refrigerator for 1 to 2 hours. These are banana leaves. They're available fresh in Hispanic markets and frozen in most supermarkets. There are also mail-order sources. What you want to do is cut about a ½ inch strip off one end and set it aside. Then take an achiote marinated piece of snapper, place it in the center, and top it with an onion ring and a sprig of fresh oregano. Fold the top of the banana leaf over, and then fold in one side and the other side. It's almost like making a blintz. Then just fold the top over and use this extra strip of banana leaf to tie the package to seal it. Just like that. Here are your Tican Chic packages ready for grilling. By the way, Tican Chic comes from the Mayan words. Tican means to turn, chic means to marinate. So, turned, marinated fish. Let me show you the grill. I'll grill the Tican Chic on a Kamado cooker. This is also called a ceramic cooker. It's a charcoal grill. I've lit charcoals at a nice 2-inch bed at the bottom. You want to preheat the grill to high and then do a quick brush of the grill grate. Dip a folded paper towel in oil to oil the grate. Normally you don't need to brush in oil when you're grilling in a leaf, but you can never be too sure. So once the banana leaf packets are browned on the bottom, simply turn them over. Well, the Tican Chic look ready. You can see the banana leaves are well browned on both sides. But to be sure, what you can do is insert a metal skewer in the center of the fish. Leave it in for a couple of seconds, pull it out. If it's hot to touch, the fish is cooked. Here are our Tican Chic snapper in banana leaf bundles. And to serve, all you do is snip this strip of banana leaf, and you can open these guys up. And that smells sensational. What's nice is the way the onion and the oregano give you an extra little kick of flavor. That is really good. You know, what's interesting is as the banana leaf burns, it almost smokes the fish. So that concludes our round-the-world tour of Fish on the Grill. Brazilian coconut shrimp, garlic sesame halibut, snapper grilled in banana leaves in the style of the Yucatan. It's fish over fire at Primal Grill. Okay, you ready? Sure. It's the Singus. So there you have it. Oh, shoot. But to tell for sure, what you want to do is insert. I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry, that was very fake. So to get the. Coffee-crusted brisket, so tender it cuts with a fork. Hellfire T-bone steaks, guaranteed to make you sit up and take notice. And smoke-roasted free-range chicken, health food hot off the grill. We're grilling beef and game on the range. I'm Stephen Reichland, and from the beautiful Esplendor Resort in southern Arizona, it's time to grill. Grilling brings out the cowboy in all of us. After all, smoked brisket originated in Texas cattle country, and barbecue was brought to Missouri along the Chisholm Trail. Today's show is designed to make you at home on the range, or at least at home with the smoked and grilled foods of the range. Hellfire T-bone, coffee-crusted brisket, and a free-range chicken grilled with herb butter under the skin. On the range evokes the great sense of openness and expanse of the American West. This is where cattle were raised and herded. This is where Texas barbecue was born, such iconic dishes as Texas brisket. To me, it sort of evokes the grand spirit of American barbecue. If I had $1 for everyone who wrote in with a brisket problem, I could, well, if not retire, certainly buy myself a big new smoker. Brisket is the Mount Everest of barbecue. Smoke it low and slow for the right amount of time, and you feel like you're on top of the world. Rush the process or overcook the brisket, and you wind up with a mouthful of shoe leather. Today, I'm going to show you how to nail the perfect brisket for your family or for a crowd. Brisket is a fibrous flat muscle from the chest of the steer. This is a whole brisket, sometimes it's called a packer brisket, and it consists of 3 parts. The deckle, this fatty but very tasty portion on top, a flat, which is located underneath this cap of fat, and finally the point, which is located at the end. This is a trimmed brisket flat. It's what you're likely to find in the supermarket. There are 2 schools of thought about trimming brisket. I adhere to the less is more school. That is, I trim off very little fat, leave most of it on the brisket. The idea is, as the brisket cooks, the melting fat will baste the meat and keep it moist. Now the rub. In keeping with our home on the range theme, the rub starts with coffee. Then we'll add an unexpected ingredient, cocoa powder, salt, pepper, paprika, brown sugar, ground coriander, ground cumin, onion powder, and garlic powder. And I like to mix the ingredients for the rub with my fingers. That way you can break up any lumps that may be in the brown sugar. What's the deal with the coffee and cocoa? Well, they have a pleasantly earthy, bitter flavor that goes really nicely with the meat. Now, apply the rub. What you do is you just sprinkle it on top of the brisket. Do the same thing for your brisket flat, and that is apply the rub and rub it into the meat. When you smoke a lean brisket flat, I like to place it in a foil pan. That protects the bottom of the meat from the direct heat. And another way you can keep it from drying out is to drape the top with strips of bacon. Of course, this adds an extra layer of flavor. You can cook the brisket right away. If you cure it overnight with the seasonings, the flavor will be all that much richer. Let me show you the smoker. This is called a horizontal barrel smoker. It originated in Texas and Oklahoma. It's the home-size version of the big rigs the pros use on the professional barbecue circuit. Consists of two parts. This is the cooking chamber, and back here, this is the firebox. This is where the heat is actually generated. What you do is light a couple of chimneys of charcoal. And what you want to do is this fat head part goes closest to the flame. The smoker's a little hotter on this end than this end. And I'll put on the smaller brisket as well. So this one will be ready in about 5 hours. We'll have it for lunch. This one, about 12 hours, we'll have it for dinner. Close the smoke chamber. And the last step is to add the wood chunks. They've been soaked in water for about an hour so that they smolder rather than burn. What you want to do is add about 2 or 3 wood chunks every hour. Place them on the coals. Now let me show you the mop sauce. A mop sauce is a bit different than a barbecue sauce. First of all, it's thin. Second of all, it contains little or no sugar. Starts with dry red wine, then orange juice, balsamic vinegar, coffee to reinforce the coffee that was in our brisket rub, Worcestershire sauce, salt, freshly ground black pepper, and your favorite hot sauce. Whisk the ingredients together until the salt crystals dissolve. And check it out. This is our brisket after about 2 hours. So the way you use a mop sauce is you simply apply it with this tool. This is called a barbecue mop. You want to mop the meat once an hour until it's cooked. We'll continue cooking the briskets. And that's what I'm talking about. That's what a Texas brisket should look like. Looks done. You can see it's reduced in weight almost by about 40%. But the way you check for sure is use an instant read meat thermometer. Insert it into the thickest part of the brisket. You want to be at 195 degrees. Bingo, we're right on the money. Lift this bad boy to the cutting board. You never want to cut into brisket or any large roast right away. You want to let it rest for about 10 or 15 minutes. The meat will relax. It will taste much juicier. So just tent the brisket with aluminum foil to keep it warm. And here's the smaller brisket flat. I cooked it for 5 hours, took it off the smoker, and then put it back just to warm it. And here too, you want to tent it just maybe for 5 minutes, just to let the meat rest. And to serve with the brisket, this is some jalapeno cheese cornbread that we direct grilled to toast it. And this is a red eye barbecue sauce. Both recipes are on our website. So let's see how we did on the brisket. Once the brisket has rested, all you need to do is carve it. Remember, the grain runs this way on the brisket, so you want to carve it across the grain. I like to put the sauce on the side of the meat so you can appreciate the spice and smoke flavors first before you taste the sauce. Let's see how we did. That brisket melts in your mouth. And the funny thing about the coffee, you don't really taste it as coffee, but there's a layer of flavor that's different than a standard salt and pepper brisket. So now you know the secret of nailing the perfect brisket. I created these very quick T-bones, seasoned with hot sauce and mustard, but they can be made from start to finish, literally a couple of minutes. If you like hot and spicy food, these are a killer. There are 3 things every aspiring grill master should know how to do: smoke a brisket, roast a chicken, and grill a steak. The latter isn't complicated, but you do need to know a little about anatomy and physics. Here's a steak that's guaranteed to make you sit up and take notice. I call it a Hellfire T-bone. The first step is to pick an intrinsically tender steak, like a New York strip or a filet mignon. There happens to be a cut that includes both, the mighty T-bone. Now, this is your New York strip. This is your filet mignon, connected by a T-shaped bone. Steaks are graded into prime and choice, and the grading refers to the amount of marbling. These are prime steaks. If you take a look here, you can see these wonderful thick veins of fat. Remember, folks, in the world of grilling, fat equals flavor. First step is to season the steaks with coarse salt and pepper. Now comes the Hellfire part. Brush the tops of the steaks with your favorite hot sauce. Then sprinkle each steak with mustard powder. Finally, you can pat the ingredients into the meat with a fork. That helps the spices penetrate the meat more easily. Now let me show you the compound butter. It starts with chopped chipotle chilies. Chipotles are smoked jalapenos. Finely chopped fresh cilantro and salt and pepper. Cream these ingredients together with a wooden spoon until blended. Then what you want to do is transfer the butter onto parchment paper. Roll it up into sort of what resembles a Tootsie Roll. Just like that. Roll it into a cylinder, and then you twist the ends. What you're going to do is freeze this compound butter and then cut off slices, put them on top of the steaks. That's another secret to making a great steak, to anoint it with some sort of fat, butter or olive oil. With our Hellfire T-bones, how about a vegetable? Jalapeno poppers. So what you do to make a jalapeno popper is you cut the top off the jalapeno, and then using a paring knife, you take out the pith and seeds. The seeds are the hottest part of the jalapeno. That's not why I'm discarding them. I'm discarding them to make room for the filling. You start with a sliver of pepper jack cheese, a sliver of smoked ham, and finally a piece of cream cheese. Then stand the popper in a popper rack. There are many different varieties, and you can find them in grill shops and cookware stores. Okay, let me show you the grill. I have preheated the grill to slamming hot, and as always, we have our little grill master's mantra: keep it hot, keep it clean, a few strokes of a wire grill brush, and keep it lubricated, oiled with either a folded paper towel or an oiling cloth, dipped in vegetable oil, and rubbed across the bars of the grate. The grill is set up for direct grilling. I have 4 burners set on screaming hot. That's where I'll cook the steaks. 5th and 6th burner are actually on low. That's where I'll grill the poppers. You want to arrange the steaks on the hot oiled grill grate. Grilling time, it's about 4 to 6 minutes per side for medium rare for each steak. After 2 minutes, give each steak a quarter turn. How do you know when it's time to turn the steaks? Well, the blood will actually purl up on the top of the steak. Once you see it, turn each steak over. And look at those killer grill marks. All right, and let's see where we are here. You can see gently yielding, so we are done. And to finish each T-bone, remember our compound butter. It's been frozen, so all you do is unroll it and cut off a disc of that chipotle butter. This is one of the constants on the world's barbecue trail and one of the secrets to a great steak. Anoint it with some sort of fat. For example, in Italy, they drizzle a bistecca alla Fiorentina with extra virgin olive oil. Peter Luger's in New York adds a spoonful of melted beef fat. So let's see how we did. I'll cut off the filet mignon portion here. And you can see it's an absolutely perfect medium rare. Now a popper. I call this paradise on a plate. The mustard, hot sauce, and chipotles give this guy a triple blast of heat. And the jalapenos, that cheese and ham really does a nice smoke thing. So there you have it, Hellfire T-bone with jalapeno poppers, because some people like it hot. Free-range chickens are chickens that are not cooped up in a tiny cage in a factory. They're allowed to walk around, peck in the grass, and they're just healthier, meatier, more flavorful chickens. You know, I'm always amazed how much tastier chickens are when they're raised on the farm, not in a factory. Here's a free-range chicken with a stuffing that might surprise you. What makes this chicken so supernaturally succulent is that it's stuffed with garlic herb butter under the skin. The first step is to tunnel your finger under the skin and loosen it from the breast. Start with one finger, then work in 2 fingers, and eventually your whole hand. The idea is you want to loosen the skin from the meat without tearing it. Now, once you've loosened the skin from the breast, slide your finger under and loosen the skin from the thigh. Breathe a sigh of relief, the hard part is over. Now the garlic herb butter. You want your butter at room temperature, but not soft or melting. To it, add finely chopped tarragon, chives, and other fresh herbs, Parmesan cheese, roasted garlic, salt, and pepper. Cream these ingredients together with a wooden spoon. Once your butter is ready, take a spoonful and stuff it under the chicken skin. Massage the butter down over the breast, down over the drumsticks and thighs. One last step, take a couple of whole tarragon sprigs and insert one on the right side breast and one on the left side breast. And you'll see the sprigs once the butter melts into the skin. And here's a cool technique for trussing the chicken with a bamboo skewer. I learned this from my son Jake, who's a chef in New York. Insert the skewer through the drumstick under the bone, and then bring the skewer around to the other side and insert it through the drumstick this way. Now cross the legs over, one over the other, and push the skewer through the bottom of the chicken. Break off the top. Here's your chicken ready for roasting. I'll just keep it on ice while I show you the wood and how to set up the grill. Okay, I've set up the grill for classic indirect grilling. Coals raked into mounds or placed in the side baskets on the side, drip pan in the center. Now, one cool thing to do is you can pour some red wine in the drip pan, and as this steams, it will flavor the chicken. Then simply replace the grate. Place the chicken on the grate directly over the drip pan between the mounds of coals. Now here's an interesting wood for smoking. These are wine barrels that have been cut into chunks. I've soaked them in a little water and red wine. So what you want to do is simply take a tong full of chunks and place some chunks on one mound of coals, and then we'll place some chunks on the other mound of coals. So you'll get a smoke that has both oak flavor and wine flavor. Finally, place the grill lid over the grill. Situate the vent so it's between the mounds of coals. That will enable the smoke to be drawn evenly over the chicken. Close the vent holes, brings the temperature down to obtain a temperature of about 350 degrees. Cooking time, 1 hour and 15 minutes. Okay, so the chicken should be done. And check it out. It looks beautiful. Looks done to me. 3 tests. Number 1, you can wiggle the drumstick easily. Number 2, you could prick the thigh and the juices will run clear. But the safest, most predictable way is to use your instant read meat thermometer. Insert it into the deepest part of the thigh but not touching the bone. You're looking for 165 degrees. Right on the money. Transfer the chicken to a platter, and I've lined this platter with tarragon leaves, which will reinforce the flavor. And then what you want to do is remember to pull out the trussing skewer, and you never serve a chicken or a roast hot off the grill. You always want to tent it with aluminum foil for a few minutes to let the meat rest. That way it will be juicier. That looks really nice. You know, when you put the butter, the garlic, the herbs under the skin, they really penetrate the meat. So there you have it. Coffee-crusted brisket, Hellfire T-bones with jalapeno poppers, free-range chicken with garlic and herbs under the skin. So now I hope you're at home on the range and on the grill. See you next time. Barbecue was brought to Missouri along the Chisholm Trail. Sorry. You know, I've always been amazed how much tastier our chickens... Sorry. There are 3 things every self-aspiring... The latter isn't complicated, but you do need to know a little about anatomy and physics. So there you have it. Coffee... Sorry. I took too big a bite. Are you in? Grilled eggplant salad with caprese vinaigrette, a salad that explodes with flavor. Indian grilled cheese on a stick with grilled bread. This is vegetarian nirvana. And portobello cheeseburgers. The pesto gives the mushrooms a whole new dimension of flavor. Today we're grilling from the garden. I'm Stephen Reichland, and from the beautiful Esplendor Resort in southern Arizona, it's time to grill. I love grilled meats as much as the next guy, but I also love the vibrant flavor of vegetables on the grill. This show is all about good things from the garden. If you're a vegetarian, you won't want to miss it. And even if you're an avowed carnivore, well, you might just learn a new trick or two. Eggplant is one of the world's most popular vegetables for grilling. You find it in Argentina, you find it in Japan, you find it in the Middle East, where it's used to make a grilled eggplant dip called baba ganoush. The reason is simple. Eggplant has a very spongy consistency, and that consistency absorbs fire and smoke flavors like a sponge. First up on deck, grilled eggplant salad with caprese vinaigrette. Now, there are many different varieties of eggplant. This is the common North American bulbous eggplant, the light-skinned Asian eggplant, and the Italian eggplant, which is what I'm going to use today. So the first step is to cut the eggplant in half from tip to tip. Then what you want to do is score the bottom of the eggplant. I'm making cuts that are about 1/4 of an inch deep, and I'll score in a crosshatch pattern. What this does is it helps the eggplant cook more quickly. Let me score the other side here. Next step, season the eggplants. So what you want to do is brush the top